Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 178, Ariados Amigos. The episode begins with Ash and the gang taking a break by the lake, with Ash and Pikachu washing off their faces, and Misty deciding to go deeper into the nearby forest with Togepi to go pick some flowers. They had wandered off without telling Ash this, and this led Ash to question Brock on where the fuck they went, leading Brock to confirm. Now, why would you tell Brock and not Ash, man? What the fuck? Anyways, as Misty and Togepi were walking in the forest, Misty picked a flower and put it in her hair, questioning Togepi if she looked super beautiful. However, Togepi was disinterested, as it was interested in something in the bush. It then falls over in shock when it approaches the bush, leading Misty to run up to Togepi to make sure it was okay. However, when Misty looks in the bush, she immediately screams as she sees what seem to be spider legs inside the bush, and she calls out, "Bug!" in panic. Ash and Brock, knowing that Misty was absolutely terrified of bugs, run to the source of her screams, meeting up with her. Due to only seeing the legs, Ash orders Pikachu to take some of the parts of the bush away so that they could see what this bug truly was. Since it was a bug, they expected it to be relatively small, so they were shocked when by the time all the bushes were removed, it was a huge-ass bug. Pikachu was intimidated by the size, as was Misty, who yelled out in panic. Ash uses his Pokedex on it to find out that it was an Ariados, the evolved form of Spinarak, and Brock notices that the Ariados may have been injured, since it was just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. And it even had its eyes closed, insinuating that it could be knocked out, so Brock kneeled down to see what the problem was, to see what type of medicine he should administer. When suddenly, a woman showed up and pushed Brock out of the way, which woke up the Ariados, revealing that it was just sleeping the entire time. She exclaims that she's been searching for the Ariados for quite a long while, insinuating that it was hers and that it had gotten lost, and Ash and the gang then recognize this woman as Aya from the Fuchsia City Gym back in Kanto, the sister of the gym leader Koga. Wow, it's rare that we see a gym leader return, this is awesome. Ash and the gang try to question her on what she was doing out in a place like this, but she simply ignores them as she sends out her Venonat. Aya then explains that she was utilizing this Ariados that she claimed was hers to train her other Pokemon in Pokemon Jiu-Jitsu, which was essentially a Pokemon fighting style based primarily on self-defense. Essentially, trainers practicing Pokemon Jiu-Jitsu used moves that weren't directly attacking moves, but instead like field hazards or status moves, that type of shit. Speaking of status moves, Aya instantly ordered her Venonat to use Stun Spore on the Ariados to get some training in, but the Ariados avoided the attack by using String Shot to swing away, so this led Aya and Ash and the gang to chase after it. Aya then had her Venonat use Poison Sting to cut the string, and then with Ariados now down on the ground, she ordered her Venonat to tackle it, but as Venonat was walking up, it got caught in a spider web, which Brock realized must have been made by the Ariados as it was running away. Just then, a voice speaks out from behind the bushes and tells Aya not to let her guard down, even for a second. Aya bows to him, accepting this advice, and as the man comes out of the bushes, Aya introduces him as her tutor, and reveals that the Ariados was actually his. He had just let her borrow it for her training. Ash and the gang were immensely confused at what the fuck had been going on so far, and I'm sure you guys are as well with this summary, so here's a quick little brief explanation. So, Aya's tutor had instructed the Ariados to wait for Aya in a bush, hoping that she would be able to find it herself, without Ash and the gang's help or anything. But it had taken Aya so long for her to find the Ariados that the Ariados had fallen asleep with boredom. Once she did, though, the training simply went on as normal, which was meant to train Aya how to use defensive attacks for Pokemon Jiu-Jitsu. Aya's tutor then reveals that his name was Takichi, and he wasn't just Aya's tutor, but he was the sensei of an entire dojo where he taught Pokemon Jiu-Jitsu. Ash and the gang are intrigued by the Pokemon Jiu-Jitsu concept, so they ask to see the dojo, and Aya's tutor obliges. As soon as they arrive, Ash and the gang observe many students practicing many defensive moves, such as, Stun Spore, String Shot, Spikes, all that type of shit. And while Ash and the gang observe, Aya decides to give them some tea. However, when she comes back with the tea, Brock instantly becomes distracted from all of the training that was going on, as just like before, he had still a crush on Aya. I mean, he had a crush on every girl, but if you remember back during the Fuchsia Gym episode, he really liked Aya. He even wanted Koga's approval to marry her, even though Aya had rejected him. Anyways, as soon as Aya returned with the tea, Brock instantly tried to flirt with her, stating that even though Aya wasn't a master of Jiu-Jitsu yet, she could still be his tutor. Aya surprisingly doesn't reject Brock right away, and she's actually surprised that Brock suggested something like that, but Brock assures her that he was serious, as he sends out his Pineco, saying that he believes that Aya could make them a better team, with the help of her guidance. Pineco was very interested in being tutored by Aya as well, if it meant that he could grow closer to Brock, so he became so excited that he self-destructed. Aya then asks her sensei if Ash and the gang could all stay for a little bit longer, and not only watch the training, but actually partake in it. Because after hearing how Brock wanted to be tutored by her, Aya realized that Ash and Misty were probably interested in learning about Jiu-Jitsu as well, and Ash and Pikachu definitely were, that's for sure, because they figured that if they learned some Jiu-Jitsu techniques, it could help them with their battles. Aya's tutor agreed to let Ash and the gang get some training in, though added that there were several different classes that were distinguished by the uniform that you wore, so he instructed them to pick out a specific uniform. A red-colored one if you wanted to study battle techniques, a yellow-colored one if you wanted to study move specialty techniques, and blue-colored ones for beauty and health classes, which were more focused on your body than with your Pokemon. Ash obviously chooses the battle with the red uniforms, and Brock obviously chooses the move studies with the yellow uniforms due to, him wanting to be a breeder and learning about specific moves could help with this. As for Misty, she initially wanted to join the battle class with Ash. However, she decided to join the beauty and health classes after learning from Aya that some of the beauty treatments can make you look like a movie star, and this excited her. She was then further convinced when it was also revealed that the beauty and health class was only conducted once a year. There was usually only the battle and move classes, but since this class was so rare, people came from many different regions, even ones aside from Kanto and Johto, foreshadowing, to attend. Wanting to potentially meet people from other regions, Misty decided fully to join the beauty class. She immediately regretted this, though, as she unfortunately didn't find any trainers from other regions, and the main beauty technique that was demonstrated involved Spinnerack applying its webbing to a person's face as moisturizer, and when Misty had to endure this, this obviously freaked her out due to hating bugs, especially Spinnerack. She tries to tell it to stop, but the class instructor tells it to keep going to the point where Misty faints from fear. The instructor then explained to the already passed out Misty that the reasoning for the Spinnerack webbing, despite Misty's protests, was because the entire point of this class was for her to face her fears. It wasn't just to become beautiful, like, how is that related to jujitsu? No, facing your fears, that was more jujitsu related. Man, Misty heard that, I think she would have lost her shit. But as for Brock, he was having a bit of a better time in his move class, as he volunteered to demonstrate some moves that his Pineco knew, as he told his Pineco to use a move called Spikes to pierce balloons, doing so very speedily and efficiently. The teacher congratulates Brock on seemingly raising his Pineco well, and questions how he got Pineco to listen to him so well, with Brock stating that he didn't really do anything to teach Pineco to listen. Pineco was just naturally a great teammate. As if on cue, Pineco then exploded with happiness from Brock's comment in his face. Thankfully, this didn't seem to tarnish Brock's reputation with the rest of the class. As for how Ash's class was going, he was simply watching a battle and observing it between a Houndoom and a Hypno. The Hypno used Hypnosis, but Houndour countered with Smog, followed by a feint attack, and then fully defeated the Hypno with a flamethrower. Ash then complained when he would be up to battle, as he was getting pretty sick of just watching, and thankfully it was his turn next, and he was matched up against none other than Aya, which very much excited him, as it meant that he finally got to have a rematch with her after their initial battle at the Fuchsia Gym, like over 130 episodes ago by this point. Ash was excited to show Aya how much he'd improved, and Aya was ready to show Ash how much she had improved, especially her, because she was the one who lost the battle last time, so she wanted revenge. Anyways, the battle finally begins, as the two trainers agree to use the same Pokemon they used during their initial battle, Ash using Bulbasaur, and Aya using her Venonat. Bulbasaur starts off by using Vine Whip, which manages to knock Venonat off balance, and then he uses a Leech Seed, beginning to drain Venonat of its energy, just as he had in their original battle. Ash thought that he could win, using the same strategy again. However, Venonat used Supersonic to confuse Bulbasaur, and then while Bulbasaur was confused, Venonat went in for a tackle. But Bulbasaur then used Vine Whip to push himself high into the air, and then used Vine Whip yet again to attack Venonat from the air, wrapping it up and then tossing it to the ground, knocking Venonat out, and getting Ash his second win against Aya. Damn. That's like the first time he's beat a gym leader twice. I know Aya technically wasn't the gym leader, Koga was, but Koga is technically Elite 4 level, at least in the games, so I think Aya's gym leader level at least. Aya gracefully accepts her loss, commending Ash and Bulbasaur on how much they seem to understand each other because of the immense bond that they've grown over the course of the entire series. Ash congratulates Aya as well, stating that although he won, it was a tough battle, because Aya and Venonat were very tough opponents. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were spying from the rooftop of the dojo and saw Ash and Aya's battle, along with all the other ones for that matter, and after seeing all the strong Pokemon, it came to the conclusion that they should of course steal them all and sell them to both Giovanni and some collectors. Later that night, Ash and the gang had been permitted to stay overnight at the dojo since they technically were now students having attended classes, and speaking of their classes, Misty and Brock complained to Ash about what had happened in their classes. It was obvious why Misty was complaining, but as for why Brock was complaining, he had gotten embarrassed when Pineco exploded. Despite the fact that none of his classmates cared, I mean, he really wished that didn't happen. At least Ash was happy with his class though, as he told Brock and Misty about how he had beat Aya for a second time. Speaking of Aya, once everyone else was tucking in for bed, Pikachu ran up to the dojo window and saw Aya practicing outside, so Ash became intrigued by this and decided to jump out of bed and go see what she was up to. She was in fact vigorously training with her Venonat, and Ash complimented her that not many trainers trained for both the day and the night. Aya rebutted that she had to do this much practice if she wanted to achieve her goals, with Ash realizing that he felt the same way about becoming a Pokemon Master. Or at least he thought he did, because I doubt Ash would train both day and night if it meant that he didn't get to eat dinner. But anyways, Aya then resumed training with her Venonat, only for Venonat to then run off as it had sensed something, due to picking up voices. As Aya and Ash followed Venonat, it led them to the source of these voices, which was back inside the dojo's main area, where several of the students were complaining about how their Pokeballs had been stolen. Ash and Aya then run outside to investigate, with Aya's tutor, Brock, and Misty also following, since they had all met up inside. When suddenly, Team Rocket show up, surprise, 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 and they had all the Pokeballs in their hands, and they immediately ran back to their Meowth balloon and placed the Pokeballs inside. Ash and the gang of course expected Team Rocket to try and float away instantly, but they didn't. Instead, they claimed that they wanted to show a secret technique of their own that was apparently better than any jujitsu technique, which happened to be a claw deploying from the Meowth balloon to grab Pikachu. Which was really unfortunate, because Pikachu was just on the verge of using Thunderbolt before it was grabbed, and now it couldn't. As Team Rocket retrieved him from the claw and trapped him in an electric-proof cage, and then began to truly fly away in their balloon this time. Thankfully, Aya's tutor was able to quickly craft a makeshift kite, utilizing his fast skills, and then has his Ariados attached to the kite as well by using String Shot. He has Ariados run, which creates enough momentum to lift the kite up into the sky so that he can follow Team Rocket in their Meowth balloon, as Ash and the gang and Aya follow on foot. Having the Meowth balloon in his view, the tutor then throws some jujitsu throwing stars at the balloon, causing it to pop. As the balloon was going down, though, Jessie wanted to make sure that the tutor went down with them, so she sent out her Arbok and had to use Poison Sting to cut the Ariados' string shot and attach it from the kite, which sent the kite plummeting down as well. Thankfully, though, before the kite fell down, the tutor used his now lower vantage point to his advantage as he threw more throwing stars at the net that all the Pokeballs were located in, and this detached the net from the balloon, sending it plummeting down separately so that Brock could catch it. Even with the Pokeballs saved, this still meant that Team Rocket and Aya's tutor were falling down to the ground, so Ash and Aya instantly ran to where the balloon and Aya's tutor were crashing, as Aya comforted her tutor as he crashed, and Ash managed to climb a tree to save Pikachu's container before it fell out of the balloon. As for Team Rocket, they didn't want to give up so easily, so Jessie commanded her Arbok to attack and steal back the Pokeballs. Aya told her tutor to do something, but the tutor protested that him and his Ariados were way too exhausted from falling, and also Ash's Pikachu was still trapped in the cage, so now the only one who could save the day was Aya, with the tutor telling her to prove herself and how well she had trained with her Venonat by using her Venonat in the battle. Aya still believed she wasn't fully practiced enough, though, so she rebutted that Brock and Misty could battle instead, and explained to her tutor that she wasn't ready, but the tutor rebutted back that no one was ever fully ready for battle, and she had to battle whether she liked it or not. After this little bit of assurance from her tutor, Aya was now ready to battle, as she sent out her Venonat, and tried to dodge Arbok's incoming attack by using a Stun Spore, but unfortunately, Arbok was able to dodge the Stun Spore and get off a Poison Sting. Aya panics, but thankfully, Venonat was able to dodge at the last second. Seeing how Aya was in trouble, her tutor suggested her to remember her battle with Ariados earlier in the day, and essentially use Ariados' strategy to her own advantage this time, remembering that the first thing Ariados did was fall asleep, which ended up catching her off guard, allowing the Ariados to strike. Aya did the same thing as she commanded her Venonat to use Rest, hoping that it would be able to endure any of Arbok's incoming attacks while it was sleeping. Unfortunately, it didn't seem as though Venonat would be able to, as while it was asleep, Arbok took the opportunity to wrap it up in its tail and practically start to strangle it. Thankfully, Venonat was able to wake up at the last second, catching Arbok off guard, and taking the opportunity to use a Stun Spore and paralyze Arbok. This then allows Venonat to use a huge tackle attack, sending Arbok flying into the Meowth balloon, where Jessie James and Meowth were. Jessie wasn't intimidated, though, because the Venonat was extremely close to being knocked out from Arbok's wrap, so she tried to get James to send out his Weezing, but before he could do so, Ash had managed to free Pikachu from the container that he was in, allowing him to finally use Thunderbolt, sending Team Rocket blasting off. Brock noted how Aya letting Venonat go to sleep distracted Team Rocket, causing them to be overconfident, thinking that they could easily beat a sleeping Pokemon, which allowed her to catch Team Rocket off guard. Aya's tutor then commended her as well, as that rest technique was exactly the point of Jiu-Jitsu, attacking but not directly, and also turning your weakness into a strength, showing how you were able to go from your most vulnerable position of being asleep to suddenly winning the battle. Speaking of sleep, Ash and the gang were very tired after this event with Team Rocket, so everyone went to sleep and awoke the next morning. Ash and the gang then prepared to depart to continue their journey, but not before thanking Aya's tutor for inviting them to stay at the dojo, where they had learned quite a bit. Aya's tutor responds that it was his pleasure, and adds that they can come back for more training anytime they wanted, although Misty swiftly declined, not wanting another spin rack incident. Ash and the gang then made their exit as Aya's tutor thanked them for all their help, and Brock tried to flirt with Aya one more time, only to be rejected as usual. The episode then ends with one last scene from Team Rocket, who had blasted off into one of Ariados' nets that it had laid out. It turned out that it laid more than one trap. More unfortunately for Team Rocket, this net was in a tree that was hanging over a cliff, so if the net happened to break, then they would fall off of this said cliff. And unfortunately, the net did break, as Wobbuffet forcibly popped out of his Pokeball, making there be way too much weight inside the net. Damn.